Hi folks, how are you doing? The game number 9 of this World Championship match has ended just a minute ago, and in my opinion it will be remembered for a long time. At least for me, this has been the most exciting game so far in the match. Huge game. It was like, we had games 3 and 4 where Black could have won. They were very interesting games, but even the games that Magnus has won so far, 2 games, they have been, well, victories, of course decisive results, but they were just rook end games, very slow, very technical, not that exciting. But today's games was really huge. It was old style chess. Anand had had the white pieces and went for an attack. Went for the black king, and he almost succeeded. He had an absolutely amazing attack, great potential against the black king. But okay, even, well, just to illustrate that I'm not the only one probably that was excited about this attack during the live broadcast. Some very strong GMs like Enish Kiri and Fabiano Caruana were tweeting saying that Anand had a great potential there, but strangely and suddenly something really bad happened, and Magnus went on to win the game very fast. Anand just blundered. Let us see what happened. Okay, for the first time in this match, Anand plays d4. He wants to check what Magnus has and try something different, as he was not having much success against the Ruy Lopez, the Berlin defense of Magnus. So knight f6, c4. Of course, Magnus can play a huge number of defenses against d4. He can play the Slav, he can play the Grunfeld, the Nimzo Indian, the King's Indian. He's played almost everything. He has played even the Dutch, the Benko. But he wants to play something like an Nimzo Indian, more or less solid stuff. Also, there are lots of different variations. Knight c3, bishop b4, and this e4 square is kind of the crucial point of this defense. White is trying to defend it with the knight and put a pawn here, in which case he would have a huge center, lots of advantage there. But Black is trying to first control with the knight and then indirectly with this bishop pinning the knight, so control this e4 square. And there are lots of possibilities here for white to play knight f3, the Kasparov variation, the classical queen c2, but he goes f3. There's also possible to play a3 right away, or e3, the more positional and slow approach. But Anand goes f3, not the most common variation, but certainly an interesting one. Very unbalanced positions will be seen in this line. So white is trying to put a pawn on e4 right away and have a very strong center, and the natural reaction for black is to counter-attack on the center right away with something like d5. Now white plays a3. Black, well, could also retreat to e7, but taking on c3 is very normal. And now he bounces back once again on the center with c5. He can't just let white have this huge center, because it would give white an important edge. So here c takes, e takes. Of course, taking with a queen is not very advisable, because something like e4, queen d8, and white has an enormous pawn structure here, a strong center. So e takes d5, and e3 is the normal move here, giving extra protection to this d4. And white is saying, well, my pawn structure is a little bit weird, but I have the bishop pair, and maybe after something like e4, if I succeed to have strong pawns, I could have a potential attack on the king side. So he's trying to play the bishop to d3 normally, knight e2, and then castle, and try to play either e4 or a king side attack. Here, Magnus Carlsen as black played not the most common move. He went for c4, just blocking the center, taking away this square, this d3 square from white. Now it is not possible for white to put the bishop here, but he's committing in the center, and whenever white succeeds in playing e4 in favorable conditions, he will have a really strong center and very important, very interesting chances of attacking on the king side. So black will have to look for lots of counterplay here on the queen side, where he could have potential threats. The more or less normal approach here would be, or the most common approach here would be to play something like castle, bishop d3, developing pieces, castle. Okay, it's a very playable position. Interesting one for both black and white, have been played lots of time. But okay, he went for this c4 line, clearly a preparation. So now knight e2, just this is more or less the piece white is going to develop first. Knight c6 and g4. Very interesting move, just showing that he's not going to settle there and go for a slow positional battle. g4 showing his intentions. Now it is almost sure that black king will have to castle short, so this is very committal. This g4 move has been played not that much. One of the last games I found is it's a game played by a guy I know very well, Alexei Patov, a very strong GM, born in Ukraine, now representing Turkey. And a very interesting move, g4, just showing his intentions and going for an attack. Now Anand had to do something like this. He's down on the score, 2 points, so he can't just sit there and wait for this match to end. Short castle, bishop g2, putting the bishop on its natural square right now. Something like knight g3 or would also be, I think, interesting. Just speculating with some e4 after castling or something like that, of course, or just going with h4 for a direct attack. But okay, bishop g2, very logical as well. Now knight a5, black has to create some counterplay, and this is the place to play for him, the queen side. He's trying to go to b3, a very strong point for the knight, and try to create something there. White castle short, knight b3 attacking the rook, and now the rook could go either to a2 or b1, and Anand shows he wants to attack, playing rook a2, possibly to bring the rook to the king side to help the future attack there. Very interesting. And black keeps playing on the queen side, b5, just he cannot do anything in the center. Of course, touching these pawns on the king side would be almost suicidal, so he must play on the queen side, generate some counterplay. Knight g3, relocating the knight to a much better square. Now he's supporting e4, he's supporting some advances on the h file, he's controlling f5, a5, and now g5. He goes right after the black king, very interesting. Knight e8, the most logical square for the knight because it's defending this g7 square, which could be potentially very important, and also could be relocated via c7 or d6. If there is a passed pawn here, d6 could be a very important blocking square, just like Nimzovich used to say some decades ago. So obviously, well, the other option was to put it on d7, but here the black knight is blockading his own bishop, and it hasn't that much squares to go back. So obviously, knight e8 is better, and e4. Finally, white can play this e4 move, and really it looks very promising. White is having a huge center here after exchanges, and he could have a potential very interesting attack on the black king. So at this point it was looking very nice for white, although Engines are not that optimistic, and they always thought that black would hold, if not more, but looking to this position with a human eye, it's not really pleasant to play with black, I think. Here black takes on c1. Now white hasn't got his bishop pair anymore, but it isn't very important here because just in terms of development, this knight has moved lots of times to be exchanged for a bishop which had not moved yet, because so that's not a very big advantage to black. So queen takes and rook a6. Now the rook is still on this a file, which would be potentially very important for black to generate counterplay, and also is speculating with the possibility of defending the king side via this 6th rank. e5, blockading the center, just getting his space. Now the knight goes to c7. Probably he would like to go something like e6 to try to hold the position, or to participate in the counterplay on the queen side. f4, advancing those pawns. Very interesting. Now his own king's security so far is very. There is no danger on for the white king, and he's going right after this other guy, the black king. B4, just trying to generate counterplay. Counterplay, very logical. Exchanges. White takes on a6. Knight takes, and now a5. A huge pawn structure here on the fifth, and certainly I wouldn't feel really that well here being black, but okay. Magnus is Magnus. He's the world's highest rated player. Sorry. So he certainly knew what he was doing. B3, and now this is already a passed pawn, just 2 squares away from being another queen. It's protected, and it's basically all black has. This is all he has got for as counterplay, which is not certainly a minor thing. Protected passed pawn on 6. If any pieces are exchanged here and white is not getting his attack, this pawn will surely win the game for black. But in return, white has this structure with all these pawns going right after the black king. He has this queen who's going to go to the king side. The knight is well placed, the rook on the open file. So very, very dynamic and very interesting position here. Anand here spent kind of like half an hour or even more to move. He was probably realizing he has a very nice position, a potential threat on the king, and he surely knew that this could be a no returning point in the match. If he does succeed to win this game in a very nice way, he could be really back on the score and having lots of possibilities to fight back, to defend his crown. But otherwise, if he misses something, this is almost over. So he was thinking, trying to not miss anything. Probably a very good decision. Although finally he went on a little time travel, but you don't want to miss a very simple move here or good ideas. So finally he went queen f4, very logical move, just getting the queen nearer to this king, trying to go probably to the h file or sporting an f6 advance. Now knight c7, the knight is hurrying back to defend this important g7 square. f6, g6, this leaves the g7 square very weak, as white's simple idea would be to go to the h file and checkmate black king. But fortunately for black, he has this knight. We're going to go to e8, and he's going to defend g7. Queen h4 was played here, and knight e8. Now this square is defended, and even though white goes there to have this permanent threat, and also with the potential threat of bringing this rook and checkmate black on the h7. Now b2. Very interesting here. Black is saying, well, I have a pawn here, just threatening what to advance. Anand took his time here once again to think, and he went with the very brave and the very spectacular. So far, I think this is one of the most brave decisions we've seen in the match. Rook f4 move. This is very, I think, well, this is amazing. Letting just black have another queen and betting for an attack, for a decisive attack on the black king, which is packed up here. Computers were suggesting here another move, probably a little bit better, but you can never say that in an unclear position like this. Knight e2 was being suggested with some interesting ideas. Now queen a5, trying to go to a1 and get this pawn promoted, and knight f4. This seems not to be that much, but it's in fact very dangerous move, as black cannot just simply go to a1 and trying to get another queen, because now suddenly the knight takes on d5, and he's threatening checkmate in a couple of moves. So if black just gets his queen, check on e7, and after this move the queen takes on f8 and is checkmate. So very dangerous knight if he goes into the black's position. So here probably black would have to go to e6 instead of going to a1 with the queen. He would have probably have to go to e6 with the bishop. So white takes, And now bishop h3, threatening to take on e6 with check, and checkmate on the next move. The queen goes back to defend, and really very unclear position here. Computer says it's roughly equal, but man, this is really crazy. Black has a pawn about to promote, but white has a potential attack here on the black king, and black has to be really careful not to get checkmated in a couple of moves. But anyway, Anand went for even more spectacular way of playing this. Rook f4, just letting black have his second queen. Not something you could expect to happen in a world championship match, but Anand is more or less in desperado way. He should win, so it's a very correct decision here. So black takes a second queen. Now white must checkmate black, or otherwise he's absolutely lost. So the queen is checking white's king, and this is a very, very important moment, probably the crucial point, one of the most crucial points of the match. Anand here had an only move to keep the game going, which was bishop f1, because he's still threatening to put the rook on h4 and checkmate on h7, and black would have to find a really unique moves, only moves to keep the game going, not to be checkmated. So queen d1 was the first move, because after rook h4 he would have to go queen h5, giving the queen back. Now after the rook takes, the bishop suddenly protects on h7. White could play bishop h3, trying to distract this bishop. Of course, he's not going to take, because it would be checkmate in one move. So bishop g6, and a very unclear position. Black has a piece for 2 pawns, but his king's position is very, very weak, so not sure what could happen here. This is a very interesting, very, very sharp position. But instead, after the pawn transforms into a queen on b1 unchecked, Anand suddenly blunders. Knight f1 is a huge blunder, because fairly simple, because it wasn't that difficult to see that after queen u1, now the queen is defending h4, and whenever white puts the rook on h4, the queen is going to be sacrificed, and black will have an entire rook, well, a rook for a pawn advantage, and white essentially is not in time, is short of pieces to checkmate black, and he's going to lose very, very easily. So a very decisive moment on the match, this check and this knight f1. Anand probably just lost his title today. There are still 3 games to be played, but he should win all 3 of them just equal. Magnus just needs just half a point, just a simple draw out of 3 games to win the World Championship title. So, what a day! We can almost say we have a new world champion. Anand must be really, really demoralized today. He could, yeah, I can bet he's not going to sleep any minute today tonight. So really a very exciting game today, and a very huge upset for white here, for Anand, just more or less giving up his world championship title. Let us see what happens in the next 3 games. Thanks for watching.